Ferrari F40 is not an ordinary sports car. It is an automotive icon, a machine surrounded by legend, and at the same time the last model created under the personal supervision of Enzo Ferrari. This fact alone gives the F40 an absolutely unique place in automotive history. When it appeared in 1987, the world literally went crazy for it. At the time, there was no other car that looked as brutal, drove as fast, or delivered such raw emotions. The F40 was not built to provide comfort or luxury. It had no electric conveniences, thick carpets, safety systems, or power steering. The driver was given pure mechanics and enormous power that had to be controlled solely through personal skill. That is exactly why the Ferrari F40 is considered one of the last truly analog supercars in the world. At a time when modern sports cars increasingly resemble computers on wheels, the F40 remains a symbol of brutal, electronics-free motoring. Enzo Ferrari himself once said that what mattered most to him was for the driver to feel real emotions and respect for the machine after pressing the accelerator hard. That philosophy defined the F40 project. The car was meant to become the best Ferrari in history, and at the same time, the fastest road car in the world. Remarkably, the goal was achieved. The Ferrari F40 could exceed 320 kilometers per hour, and its performance at the end of the 1980s seemed almost unreal. The car immediately became an object of desire for millionaires, collectors, and automotive enthusiasts around the globe. To this day, it remains one of the most iconic models in the history of the Maranello brand. The story of the Ferrari F40 began with rivalry against the Porsche 959, which in the mid-1980s was considered the technological symbol of the future. The German supercar dominated in terms of performance and technical sophistication, something that deeply irritated Enzo Ferrari. Ferrari could not accept a situation in which Porsche possessed the fastest road-going car in the world. Italian engineers therefore began work on a machine that was intended to literally destroy the competition. The starting point became the Ferrari 288 GTO Evoluzione project, an extreme machine prepared for Group B rally racing. When the FIA eliminated the category after a series of tragic accidents, Ferrari was left with 5 prototypes and an enormous amount of technical knowledge that had to be utilized. At that point, Enzo Ferrari made a key decision: create a road-going supercar that would use motorsport experience and technology. That was how the F40 was born. The model's name was not accidental. It marked the 40th anniversary of Ferrari. The car's debut was intended to be a grand celebration for the company, and at the same time, a demonstration of the strength of Italian automotive engineering. Designers from Pininfarina created a body full of sharp edges, huge air intakes, and an enormous rear wing. Everything was subordinated to aerodynamics and performance. There was no room for compromise or unnecessary additions. The F40 was supposed to look like a racing machine approved for road use. Enzo Ferrari personally demanded from the engineers that the new model be absolutely the best in the world. The car was developed in only 13 months, which still seems like an unbelievable pace today. At the moment of its premiere, the F40 caused an enormous sensation. Journalists were amazed by the brutality of the car, its appearance, and its performance. Ferrari achieved its goal. It created a car that was destined to become a legend before the first example even reached a customer. The F40 looked like a car from the future. Even today, after almost 4 decades since its premiere, its silhouette still evokes tremendous emotions. The body designed by Pininfarina was aggressive, functional, and highly distinctive at the same time. The low front end, wide fenders, gigantic air intakes, and huge rear wing made the F40 look like a pure racing machine. However, the designers did not focus solely on aesthetics. Every element of the bodywork had a specific aerodynamic purpose. The characteristic side annex ducts directed air to the engine and cooling system, while the rear section of the car was designed to stabilize the vehicle at extremely high speeds. In the 1980s, pop-up headlights were a symbol of modernity, so naturally the F40 also received such a solution. The enormous rear wing quickly became one of the most recognizable features of the car. Interestingly, Ferrari used an extremely thin layer of paint in order to reduce the vehicle's weight. In some examples, the structure of the carbon fiber and Kevlar could actually be seen beneath the Rosso Corsa red paint. At first, this solution caused controversy, but over time, the cars with the original thin paint became the most desirable among collectors. The body of the F40 represented a true technological revolution. Ferrari used carbon fiber, Kevlar, and aluminum, creating one of the first production cars built from such advanced composite materials. As a result, the car was extremely lightweight. Depending on the version, curb weight ranged from approximately 1,100 to 1,250 kilograms, which, combined with nearly 480 horsepower, resulted in a phenomenal power-to-weight ratio. At a time when most supercars were heavier and more complicated, the F40 impressed with simplicity and effectiveness. The most important element of the Ferrari F40 was undoubtedly its engine. Behind the driver sat a twin-turbocharged V8 engine with a displacement of 2.9 liters. The engine came directly from the Ferrari 288 GTO Evoluzione and was developed by the famous engineer Nicola Materazzi, who later became known as Mr. F40. The engine used 2 liquid-cooled turbochargers, 2 Baer intercoolers, and a Weber-Marelli fuel injection system. Official output amounted to 478 horsepower at 7,000 revolutions per minute, while torque reached 577 Newton-meters at 4,000 revolutions per minute. In practice, many examples produced over 500 horsepower, especially the European versions without catalytic converters. In the 1980s, these were truly cosmic figures. However, the most characteristic feature of the engine was its brutal power delivery. At lower revs, the F40 behaved relatively calmly, but after crossing approximately 4,000 revolutions per minute, there was an explosion of power. The turbochargers came alive, and the car literally launched itself forward. Many drivers described the experience as fighting a wild animal. Ferrari forgave no mistakes and demanded enormous experience. Power was sent exclusively to the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual gearbox. The characteristic metal shifter with its exposed steel gate remains a symbol of classic Ferraris to this day. Unlike modern supercars, the F40 had no electronic traction control systems whatsoever. The driver had to personally manage the immense torque and maintain the grip of the rear tires, which were 335 millimeters wide. Thanks to its lightweight construction, Ferrari could accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in approximately 4.1 seconds and reach a top speed of 324 kilometers per hour. As a result, it became the first production Ferrari road car to exceed the magical barrier of 200 miles per hour. The interior of the Ferrari F40 was the complete opposite of luxury. At a time when supercar manufacturers increasingly offered air conditioning, electric conveniences, and leather finishes, Ferrari decided to create a truly racing-oriented environment for the driver. After opening the lightweight composite doors, the driver entered an ascetic cabin stripped of almost all unnecessary elements. There were no carpets, storage compartments, radios, or traditional door handles. The doors were closed using simple pull cords, and early examples featured sliding plexiglass windows instead of conventional glass. The dashboard was covered with a simple material resembling felt, and everything inside was subordinated to minimizing weight. The cabin contained 2 bucket seats, perforated pedals, and a 3-spoke Momo steering wheel. Everything looked more like the cockpit of a racing car than the interior of a road-going Ferrari. Interestingly, even the braking system lacked power assistance. The driver had to apply tremendous force while braking, especially at very high speeds. The steering system worked in a similar way, because without power assistance, it demanded enormous precision and strength. However, this was exactly what gave the F40 its incredibly direct connection to the road. Every movement of the steering wheel, every touch of the throttle, and every gear change was felt instantly. Michael Schumacher once said after driving the Ferrari F40 that it was a true machine for getting from point A to point B as quickly as possible. The car never tried to be comfortable or practical. Its sole purpose was to deliver emotions. Today, it is precisely this uncompromising character that makes the F40 so highly valued by collectors and drivers. Modern supercars are faster, more comfortable, and easier to drive, but very few of them can provide experiences that are equally intense. When the Ferrari F40 reached the market, its performance seemed almost unreal. In the second half of the 1980s, most sports cars were nowhere near the capabilities of the Italian supercar. Ferrari accelerated from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in around 4.1 seconds and could reach 324 kilometers per hour. This achievement made the F40 the fastest series-produced road car in the world. For comparison, many ordinary family cars at the time needed more than 10 seconds to reach 100 kilometers per hour. Even some sports models from European brands were unable to exceed 250 kilometers per hour. The Ferrari F40 demonstrated just how much potential could be unlocked through lightweight construction and a brutally powerful twin-turbo engine. However, the car impressed not only with numbers. The greatest sensation came from the way it delivered power. Once the engine exceeded 4,000 revolutions per minute, the car transformed into a rocket. The turbocharging system worked violently, and the rear wheels often lost traction even at high speeds. Many drivers described driving the F40 as an experience bordering on madness. The car required complete concentration because it lacked any electronic driving stability systems. Every mistake could end in a loss of control. That is precisely why the Ferrari F40 commanded respect even among professional racing drivers. The car was fast, brutal, and incredibly demanding. At the same time, thanks to its low weight, it offered phenomenal handling and extremely direct responses. In an era dominated by electronic assistance systems and increasingly comfortable supercars, the F40 stood as a manifesto of pure mechanical engineering. Even today, the performance of this model remains deeply impressive. Modern cars are faster mainly because of electronics and all-wheel drive, whereas the Ferrari F40 achieved its results purely through engine power, aerodynamics, and driver skill. One of the most important reasons why the Ferrari F40 achieved legendary status is the fact that it was the last model developed during the lifetime of Enzo Ferrari. The founder of the brand was already nearly 90 years old at the time and fully understood that he might not live to see another great project. That is exactly why the F40 was something far greater to him than just another automobile. It became the summary of Ferrari's entire philosophy. Enzo believed that a true supercar should deliver emotions rather than comfort. Performance, engine sound, and direct contact between driver and machine were what truly mattered. All of these values were captured perfectly in the F40. Enzo himself participated in the presentation of the car in 1987 and proudly unveiled it to the world. Barely a year later, he passed away, which immediately gave the F40 an even more special status. Collectors began treating the model as the last true Ferrari built, according to the principles of the old school. That is precisely why the prices of the car started rising very quickly. Already at the beginning of the 1990s, some examples were reaching astronomical values, exceeding $1 million or pounds. Interestingly, many owners practically never used their cars. It was estimated that as many as 90% of the vehicles were stored in heated garages purely as investments. Despite this, the legend of the F40 grew with every passing year. The car appeared on posters, magazine covers, and in the dreams of young automotive enthusiasts. For many people, it became the embodiment of the perfect supercar, Unlike later Ferrari models, such as the F50 or Enzo, the F40 remained extremely raw and analog. It never attempted to be comfortable or easy to drive. Thanks to that, it is still regarded today as one of the most authentic supercars in automotive history. Initially, Ferrari planned to produce only around 400 examples of the F40. The Italians were convinced that despite its enormous performance and exceptional character, the car would remain a niche product intended only for the wealthiest customers in the world. The price of approximately $400,000 in 1987 was absolutely astronomical. For most people, it represented a fortune impossible to earn even during an entire lifetime. However, interest in the F40 exceeded every expectation. Orders began arriving from all over the world, and customers were willing to pay far more than the official list price simply to secure an example. Ferrari therefore decided to increase production. Ultimately, between 1987 and 1992, 1,315 Ferrari F40s were built. Around 213 of them were delivered to the American market. Cars intended for the United States differed mainly through the presence of catalytic converters and slightly altered engine characteristics. During production, Ferrari also introduced small modifications. In later years, the sliding plexiglass windows were replaced by conventional roll-down windows. The suspension and gearbox ratios were also modified. Despite the relatively high production number, the F40 remains an extremely rare automobile. Many examples were crashed or destroyed by inexperienced drivers who were unable to cope with the brutal character of the car. Others disappeared into private collections and practically never appear on public roads. Seeing a Ferrari F40 on the street or at a racing circuit today is a true event for automotive enthusiasts. The car has preserved an aura of exclusivity and rarity that many later supercars never managed to achieve. Although the Ferrari F40 was created as a road car, its construction possessed racing DNA from the very beginning. It is therefore no surprise that special motorsport-oriented versions quickly appeared. The most famous variant was the Ferrari F40 LM, developed together with Michelotto. The car received even more aggressive aerodynamics, fixed headlights instead of pop-up units, and a heavily modified engine. Output rose to approximately 720 horsepower, while top speed exceeded 360 kilometers per hour. In the 1980s, these figures seemed almost unbelievable. The F40 LM competed in endurance races and quickly earned a reputation as one of the most brutal racing machines of its era. Later, additional variants appeared: the F40 Competizione, GT, and GTE. The GTE version in particular impressed with its performance. Its engine produced as much as 660 horsepower, and the car received a 6-speed sequential gearbox derived from the racing Ferrari 333 SP. These machines competed in series such as the BPR Global Endurance Championship. Unfortunately, the immense power and extreme loads often caused technical failures. Ferrari F40 race cars frequently retired early because of engine problems, gearbox issues, or cooling system failures. Nevertheless, the racing variants of the F40 are still regarded today as some of the most fascinating and brutal track machines in Ferrari history. Their aggressive appearance and thunderous sound left a massive impression on both fans and competitors alike. Importantly, the LM and Competizione versions were produced in extremely small numbers. Some variants were built in only a handful of examples, which is why they now achieve enormous prices at collector auctions. Driving a Ferrari F40 is a completely different experience from driving a modern supercar. In today's cars, the driver is assisted by dozens of electronic systems: traction control, stability management, adaptive suspension, and automatic gearboxes. The F40 has none of these things. The driver is left entirely alone, with a brutal machine producing nearly 500 horsepower. Even starting from a standstill requires skill. The clutch is heavy, the gearbox feels mechanical and stiff, and the engine at low revs can behave nervously and jerk violently. However, once the turbochargers begin operating at full force, the Ferrari transforms into a true missile. Throttle response becomes explosive, and the rear of the car can lose traction even at high speed. The absence of power steering means that every movement demands strength, but at the same time, the driver feels absolutely everything happening at the front wheels. The brakes, lacking servo assistance, also require tremendous pedal pressure. Many drivers after their first experience with the F40 said that the car resembled a racing go-kart on steroids more than a traditional Ferrari. The vehicle is raw, loud, and at times genuinely terrifying. Yet that is precisely what makes driving it such an extraordinary emotional experience. The Ferrari F40 forgives no mistakes. It demands total concentration and substantial driving ability. At the same time, it gives the driver a sense of absolute control and direct connection with the machine. Many experts believe that it was one of the last supercars that truly required courage and talent from its driver. Modern cars are faster, but they often isolate the human being from the mechanical experience. The F40 does exactly the opposite. It allows the driver to feel every vibration, every suspension movement, and every explosion of power. At the time of its release, the Ferrari F40 competed mainly against the Porsche 959, and later the Lamborghini Diablo. Each of these cars represented a completely different philosophy of supercar engineering. The Porsche 959 was a showcase of future technology. It offered all-wheel drive, advanced electronics, and enormous stability at high speeds. The car was fast, comfortable, and extremely modern. The Ferrari F40, however, went in the exact opposite direction. The Italians deliberately abandoned electronic assistance systems in order to provide the driver with the rawest and most emotional experience possible. Thanks to its lower weight, the F40 felt more aggressive and brutal. Many people considered the Porsche 959 technically superior, but Ferrari delivered far greater emotions. The Lamborghini Diablo, which appeared several years later, offered a powerful V12 engine and spectacular styling. However, it was heavier and less direct than the F40. Ferrari impressed through lightness and savage character. That is exactly why it is still often considered the most iconic supercar of the 1980s. Interestingly, the F40 was also one of the first production cars to surpass the magical barrier of 320 kilometers per hour. At the time, reaching such a speed in a road car seemed almost unreal. The rivalry with the Porsche 959 further fueled the model's legend. Ferrari wanted to prove that emotions and lightweight engineering mattered more than complicated electronics. And although Porsche may have been technically more advanced, it was the F40 that achieved the status of a true automotive icon. The value of the Ferrari F40 has increased almost continuously over the years. Already during the 1990s, the car was reaching astronomical prices on the secondary market. Many wealthy buyers purchased examples purely as investments. Today, the F40 belongs among the most valuable classic supercars in the world. Standard examples in excellent condition currently achieve prices ranging from approximately $2 to even $3 million. Cars with exceptional histories, extremely low mileage, or previous ownership by famous Formula One drivers can cost even more. One example is the car previously owned by Alain Prost, whose value was estimated at more than €3 million. Originality also plays a huge role in determining price. Collectors especially appreciate cars with the thin factory paint layer, complete documentation, and Ferrari Classiche certification. Mileage has a tremendous influence on value as well. Some F40s have covered only a few thousand kilometers since new because they spent most of their lives hidden in private collections. Record-breaking auctions demonstrate that interest in the model continues to grow steadily. The Ferrari F40 has become a symbol of the golden age of supercars and at the same time one of the best examples of an automotive investment. Many people believe that prices for the model will continue to rise because the number of surviving examples is limited, and the legend of the car becomes greater every single year. Today, the F40 is not only an automobile, but also a work of art and a symbol of status. The Ferrari F40 very quickly became something more than just a car. During the 1980s and 90s, practically every young automotive enthusiast had a poster of the model hanging on the wall. Its characteristic red silhouette with the huge rear wing became a symbol of dreams about speed, luxury, and freedom. The F40 appeared in automotive magazines, computer games, and films. Even people who were not interested in cars recognized the model almost instantly. Much of this came from the car's incredible charisma. Ferrari created a machine that looked like a racing prototype while still being legal for public roads. Importantly, the F40 appeared at the perfect historical moment. The 1980s were an era fascinated by speed, technology, and extreme performance. Ferrari perfectly captured the spirit of those times. Even today, the F40 remains one of the most recognizable supercars in the world. Many people consider it the most beautiful Ferrari ever made. The car regularly appears at the world's most prestigious automotive events, concours competitions, and collector gatherings. Every example attracts enormous attention and crowds of admirers. Interestingly, despite their immense value, owners still drive their F40s on roads and racetracks. Thanks to this, the legend of the model is not limited to museums or private garages. The Ferrari F40 is still alive and continues to deliver the emotions for which it was originally created. Over the years, many extraordinary Ferrari F40 examples have achieved almost legendary status. Cars previously owned by Formula One drivers or famous collectors are especially valuable. One of the most famous examples belonged to Alain Prost, four-time Formula One world champion. The car preserved complete originality and Ferrari Classique certification, which helped it achieve an enormous collector value. Equally fascinating are examples with exceptionally low mileage. Some cars have traveled fewer than 3,000 kilometers during more than 30 years of existence. Many still retain their original paint, factory equipment, and complete sets of accessories supplied by Ferrari. Collectors also seek out very early examples with sliding plexiglass windows and ultra-thin paint layers. Such cars are now extremely rare and command the highest prices at auctions. Another curiosity includes cars repainted in the 1990s into yellow or black. Although most F40s left the factory in Rosso Corsa red, some wealthy clients ordered unique color configurations. The racing LNM and Competizione versions are especially extraordinary, and today they reach values many times higher than standard road-going examples. Some cars participated in legendary endurance races or were used in top speed record attempts. Every Ferrari F40 has its own story, which further increases its uniqueness and appeal in the eyes of collectors. The Ferrari F40 is still regarded today as one of the most important supercars in automotive history. There are many reasons for this. First, it was the last model created under the supervision of Enzo Ferrari, making it a kind of final testament from the founder of the brand. Second, the F40 perfectly captured the spirit of its era, brutal, analog, and filled with emotion. Unlike modern supercars, Ferrari did not attempt to protect the driver from personal mistakes. The car had no traction control, no ABS, and no electronic driving aids. The driver alone had to master nearly 500 horsepower sent to the rear wheels. Because of this, driving the F40 was an experience of incredible intensity and challenge. The car also amazed with its appearance. The enormous rear wing, aggressive body lines, and characteristic red paint made the model a pop culture icon. Ferrari additionally used advanced composite materials, creating an extremely lightweight and modern construction. Even today, the performance figures remain deeply impressive. A top speed exceeding 320 kilometers per hour and acceleration to 100 kilometers per hour in around 4 seconds are still highly respectable achievements. Yet the greatest strength of the F40 lies in the emotions it provides. This is a car that demands courage and skill, but in return offers experiences unavailable in most modern automobiles. That is why the Ferrari F40 remains a legend. It is not merely a fast car, it is a symbol of an era, the dream of several generations of automotive enthusiasts, and one of the greatest creations ever to leave Maranello.